Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. President-elect Donald Trump faces growing backlash to his pick for Attorney General. He wants now former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz to run the Department of Justice. Gaetz faced a criminal probe over allegations of sexual misconduct and drug use. He has never faced any charges. Gaetz resigned from the House as soon as Trump made the announcement. A House ethics probe against him has been discontinued since he resigned. Senator-elect Jim Banks has said that he will vote to confirm Gaetz. Senator Todd Young's office, however, gave us a statement when we asked him how he would vote. Senator Young, they say, has voiced his support for the nominees he has worked with and knows well. For the nominees he doesn't know well, he looks forward to learning more about their backgrounds and vision for office in the coming months. Now, Trump has announced cabinet nominations on a near daily basis over the past week. Fox News host and Iraq and Afghanistan veteran Pete Hegseth would lead the Department of Defense. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is his pick for Homeland Security. Vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will lead the Department of Health and Human Services. And former Congressman Doug Collins is getting the nod to lead the VA. Trump's first announcement was Florida Senator Marco Rubio for Secretary of State. Indiana's own Todd Young serves with Rubio on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. We asked him about Rubio shortly after that announcement was made.
Well, I know Marco Rubio is a critical thinker, a very effective communicator, and he's going to tell the president, offer his private counsel, offer his thoughts unvarnished about different global issues, but he's also a team player, which I think is really important. He understands that the President of the United States is the president and has been empowered by the people of Indiana and all Americans to exercise the full scope of his authority. So Marco is a pro, and I think he's really going to thrive in this role.
Now, former Vice President and Indiana Governor Mike Pence is urging the Senate to reject Trump's Health and Human Services pick, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's supported access to abortion services for many years. Pence says, I believe the nomination of RFK Jr. to serve as Secretary of HHS is an abrupt departure from the pro-life record of our administration and should be deeply concerning to the millions of pro-life Americans who have supported the Republican Party and our nominees for decades. Now, absent from Trump's first cabinet pick is someone to lead the Department of Education. That could be due to his campaign pledge to scrap the department entirely. Brian Todd looks into what that would entail and how likely it might be.
On the campaign trail this year, the president-elect said he's been dying to do it.
We will ultimately eliminate the Federal Department of Education.
Donald Trump's pledge to abolish the Department of Education, part of his push to wipe out what he's called corruption and waste in Washington.
We will drain the government education swamp and stop the abuse of your taxpayer dollars to indoctrinate America's youth with all sorts of things that you don't want to have our youth hearing.
Why does Trump want to get rid of the Department of Education? Analysts say part of it is the Republican philosophy of getting the federal government out of education and moving that to the states. But it also involves the culture wars.
Issues involving how sex was taught, about race and ethnicity, about LGBTQ students' rights. And so what we've seen over these last few years is that a lot of adult politics have found their ways into our schools.
What does the Department of Education do? One of its biggest jobs, analysts say, is funding America's students.
The Department of Education exists mostly to send money back to schools for Pell Grants, for student loans, for impoverished elementary and secondary schools, and for special ed.
The department's also tasked with investigating discrimination in schools. What if the department was wiped out?
It would be catastrophic for the country because so many students depend on those resources and those protections. And it's students in poverty, it's students with disabilities, it's our whole student loan portfolio.
Politics has often crept into the debate. During the first Trump administration, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, the first cabinet secretary to survive confirmation thanks only to a vice president's tie-breaking vote, championed conservative causes like charter schools and vouchers. And today, she seemed to back gutting the agency she once led.
So are you saying you don't think disbanding the DOE is the priority?
I do think it's a priority, but some of these more immediate things need to be done first.
When DeVos led the department, Trump tried cutting its budget. In the 1980s, Ronald Reagan tried eliminating the agency. Neither plan worked.
Some Republicans have resisted this and presumably will resist this again, possibly because $14 billion goes to people with disabilities, and even people on the right wing may have children and neighbors with disabilities.
Well, back here at home, we're taking a closer look at the results from this month's election. Our Kody Fisher is looking specifically at Carmel and Fishers to see if either is leaning more blue.
The numbers I crunched show voters in Carmel voted against Trump in the last two presidential elections, and the margin of victory for Trump shrunk significantly in Fishers over the same time period. Our political analysts are split on what that means for the future of politics in Hamilton County.
I sat in front of a computer, going precinct by precinct on the Hamilton County election results website to calculate what the trends might be. I showed what I found to both a Republican and Democrat Wish TV political analyst. Mario Masalamani says there is a reason why the margin of victory shrunk for Donald Trump in Fishers and why Trump lost in Carmel the last two election cycles.
Donald Trump is polarizing. You either love him or hate him, but you look at other Republicans in these areas that Democrats are claiming are blue or turning blue, they're winning by large percentage points. 20 percentage points for Sue Finkham, I would say is a huge feat.
I don't think that's accurate. I think if you look at Carmel and Fishers, you see that the down ballot races showed the same kind of drop off for Republicans and what they're used to. People in the suburban areas are identifying as Democrats more readily than they used to. That is because of Trump. I think folks that don't like Trump are also disengaging with the Republican Party.
Masalamani says low Republican turnout in Hamilton County also played a role in the results.
If we had had those 20,000 Republicans actually show up on election day or vote the month before, we would have won by a lot larger numbers.
So the turnout is concerning for you guys?
I don't know about concerning, but I think that we can't take it for granted like we used to.
Our political analysts say it's too difficult to predict if the trends will hold because the political landscape is constantly shifting. For IT Mate, I'm Kody Fisher for Wish TV, wishtv.com, and remember, follow us on Facebook for updates.
Well, coming up, we turn to on Trump's cabinet picks and the latest from Governor-elect Mike Braun. Well, welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Republican Tom John and Democrat Kip Tu. Good to see you both. Let's begin with Donald Trump's cabinet picks so far. Even some Republicans are pushing back on the nomination of Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. Tom, we'll start with you. Is it wise for Trump to pick someone who was subjected to a criminal probe, even if that probe did not lead to charges?
Well, at the end of the day, is it the safest bet? Maybe not, but he is definitely setting the course for what his administration is going to be. And one of which is he wants people who he believes will be loyal to him, defenders. And like it or not, Gaetz has been a big defender and loyal to President Trump. In addition, though, you look, and that's one aspect of it, but you look at Susie Wiles, going to be the first woman chief of staff. That's incredible. You have a number of highly talented people coming involved. You have the business community coming involved. I mean, Elon Musk may be a figure that Kip doesn't love on former Twitter X now, but the reality is it's hard to argue with the guy's brilliance and what he's created over the years. And bringing him, Vivek Ramaswamy, in to help look at government and how do we make it more efficient are great approaches. So overall, you have to look at these appointments, one, on the whole, and two is we'll see who actually gets in because some may not.
Well, to that point, Kip, how likely is it that Gaetz makes it to the floor vote stage, and could Senate Democrats peel off enough Republicans to prevent confirmation?
I'm going to predict that Gates becomes the Attorney General today, and I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to predict it. I think that in the end, Donald Trump gets what he wants out of the Republican Party because they're all afraid of him, and I think Senator Tuberville sent down the warning that if you vote against Donald Trump's picks, we're going to primary you. So I think in the end, they'll back down. I saw that Speaker Johnson said he didn't want the ethics report revealed. I thought that was pretty amazing because I believe that ethics report that was about to come out against Gates was going to be very damning. But Speaker Johnson seems to be wanting to protect Gates. So I think I think Donald Trump's going to get what he wants.
Tom?
Well, he may well. I honestly don't have a sense of it. And I think when you look at all these things, there's a lot of different ones that'll come through. The order of which they get approved and how some of those go, I think will affect how some of the cabinet appointees get through or don't get through. So I just think it's too early to tell, and let's wait and see.
Well, let's stay on that topic right now, a little more broadly here. Kip, how would these picks affect the day-to-day functioning of those departments, assuming those nominations are confirmed?
Well, look, I think Rubio is probably the most, if you will, establishment pick he made. It was the one thing that gave me a little bit of comfort that we'd have a partially sane person as the Secretary of State. But HHS going to Robert Kennedy is a very, very scary for most, I think, thinking people. Having Elon Musk and Ramaswamy really doesn't drain the swamp or set the tone that we're not an elitist country. The richest man in the world is going to be helping Donald Trump. That doesn't sound to me like anti-elitist at all. I mean, I think the overall point is that Donald Trump's going to do what Donald Trump wants to do, and he doesn't care what the Republican Party thinks, and he doesn't care what others think. He's just going to do what he wants.
Tom, is there some risk, though, that some of these picks won't be up to the task?
I don't think anybody's up to these tasks when they come into them. They have to grow into them. And I think when you look at the picks at large, that this really is, it matches what the campaign's been about. This is a campaign that was really a very populist campaign. It's a campaign of people who came to vote who don't want to be told what to do, who don't believe that what government is doing right now is really up to the task or what they view their government should be doing. And whether you're talking about RFK, whether you're talking about Elon Musk or many of the other people who have been suggested or nominated, the fact is that Trump is doing what Trump has said he'd do, which is going to shake up government. And we'll see how it goes. And I don't think any of the old playbooks, frankly.
Tom, I know you can't see Kip, but Kip was laughing there for a moment, scratching his head. So go ahead, Kip, and respond, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Oh, I just think it's funny that you have the richest man on the planet who screwed up X/Twitter, who has seen the stock of his biggest venture that we know about, Tesla, hit the skids. He was born on third base and thought he hit a triple as Elon Musk. I don't think he's brilliant. I think he's a dangerous human who's another narcissist. And at some point, I believe that those guys are going to start clashing because their egos are all both
Kip,
enormous.
You don't think that Elon Musk is brilliant?
I don't.
Okay. Hey, before we move on, I want to briefly zoom out on the cabinet question. Why does it matter to us, back here in Indiana, who Trump puts in his cabinet? And Tom, we'll go to you first, maybe for the folks at home who aren't, as in the weeds as we are.
Well, why does it matter? I mean, the federal government touches every part of our lives. It touches what happens at the border, which impacts who is in our state and states around us. HHS impacts everything from our health care to our vaccines to FDA and drug approval and whether you can have drugs approved, under what conditions you can have them approved, whether you can have things like vitamins of certain sorts. So all of these agencies reach clear into our lives, and that's the result of the last several decades of the federal government growth. I think that's the interesting experiment that's going on with Trump is he trying to arrest that growth? Is he trying to attack corporate capture and some of the regulatory capture that's gone on? Whether it succeeds or fails, I don't know, but they're certainly undertaking the initiative.
Kip, same question.
Well, I guess I want to hit on another couple of cabinet posts. The Secretary of Defense has a white nationalist tattoo on his arm. You've just got a whole mess of people that can only be described as, people who are loyal to Donald Trump, and that's all that matters to Donald Trump as someone who's going to do his bidding. If Matt Gaetz becomes the Attorney General, the rule of law is out the window, and I think it's a very, very bad sign for our democracy.
All right, let's move on to politics a little bit closer to home. Governor-elect Mike Braun has announced transition councils focused on different policy areas. Tom, we'll go back to you on this one. What do those councils and their makeup tell us about how Braun will approach governing?
Well, there are a couple of things. It strikes me as, I suppose, not surprising given his background as a businessman, that they have really broken down the state government into some pretty granular detail and brought in experts in every area to look at it. And I think that this is the same way when a company, maybe it's time to say, can we do things better? What kind of analysis can we do? They literally have, you look throughout the list, and I've looked at the lists of people that have been appointed to the various transition councils. They're people who know the areas of
Kip, I just want to get you in here too, because I'm almost out of time. Go ahead, 20 seconds.
I was heartened by the list. I will say that it's full of insiders, which is a little bit humorous to me, but it does mean that they're going to take seriously their job and look at state government. I think that's healthy, and I hope that they take a good look at it and try to make some improvements, because it needs some improvement.
All right, well, we'll leave that conversation there. Gentlemen, always good to see you both. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We will be right back. Coming up, Indiana has a record number of black mayors. We talked to one of them about how his military service affects his approach to politics. All right, welcome back. A record 9 cities in Indiana currently have black mayors. We begin in Terre Haute. That's where News 8's government reporter Garrett Bergquist talks with Mayor Brandon Sakbun.
It's been 1 year since Brandon Sakbun upset 16-year Mayor Duke Bennett. Sakbun tells me his military experience did much to prepare him for public office. Sakbun already has a host of projects underway he can rattle off.
North Terre Haute had predominantly not seen investment in years, and they are just getting a lot of support through our infill housing program. We've started a sidewalk program. We've improved our street paving program.
Sakbun is the son of Jamaican and Cambodian immigrants. He's the city's first black mayor and its first Asian mayor.
Look, representation does matter, whether it's the African-American community, veterans, farmers, women. We need to have people with a different perspective into office. And that's not just ethnicity, not just gender, but covers a myriad of topics.
He says that experience as the son of immigrants inspired him to serve his community and his country. He was commissioned into the Army in 2018 and served with the elite 75th Ranger Regiment in Afghanistan.
You know, there's definitely a lot of valuable leadership lessons, but equally as important, it teaches you to be pragmatic. It teaches you to be, very focused on delivering results. And plus, when you go from that kind of stressful environment, it does help in this role say, hey, just take a step back. Let's evaluate this total problem and compartmentalize issues and really focus on solving them.
Data suggests veterans like Sakbun are still common in public office, though not as much as they once were. Census data shows veterans account for about 6% of the U.S. population. No comprehensive data is available on veteran mayors. The Pew Research Center found the number of veterans in Congress increased slightly in 2022 to roughly 18% of its members. Most of them were under age 60, placing them in the post-Vietnam era.
There is no race, there is no gender, there's no sexuality in the military. There's one focus, and that's serving the great nation of the United States. And I think that's a great environment because you have people from all different backgrounds, big city, small city, different ethnic backgrounds, collectively working together to accomplish a goal.
Sakbun says he tries to apply that mentality in public office every day.
We're represented by Republicans and Democrats, but we have one focus, and that's progressing Terre Haute and West Central Indiana. And those are the values that Hoosiers want to see, not partisan politics, and we're happy to deliver that here in Terre Haute.
And Sakbun made history in one other way. He was 27 when he was elected. That makes him the youngest mayor in the city's history. In Terre Haute, I'm Garrett Bergquist for Wish TV, wishtv.com, or follow us on Facebook for updates.
Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30, and be sure to check out the All Indiana Politics podcast online at wishtv.com.